Playoffs round 2. What's up, everybody? Josh here, Coach JK of the Goldenrod City Goomys, here for a playoff recap. It's round 2. We are in the playoffs for season 6. We are up against a brand new foe with this round 2 matchup. We play the Bone Me Bonslys, coached by Val, half coached by Noah. But that's the only joke I'll make about that the entire time. Okay. But we play Val and the Bone Me Bonslys. They have a scary team. It was not easy to prep for. We have a doozy of a team builder and recap game. We literally just got done. And let's jump into it, because guess what? The Goomys are pushing for that championship victory. So let's jump into team builder. So real quick, this is the squad that we have for our game against Val. There's a theme to this team, and that is defense. We are going to take hits. We are also going to be able to dish them back out. So from top to bottom, we have Benedict the Execute coming back again. We're running that Harvest Citrus Berry set with Bold Nature. This thing is meant to, honestly, it's meant to wall off a lot of different things on her team. The Bonsai for one, a physical Whalmer if that's what she chooses to bring, the Gabite, a couple of like the Pineco, it's really anything offensive on the physical side. Eggs Benedict is there to lock it down. Giga Drain, Hidden Power Fire to help with Bonsai and Bulbasaur. Leech Seed's just really good in a long kind of stalled out match. We're running Toxic instead of Substitute to help with things like Spritzy if it wants to set up in our face or something like that, to where that's not a matchup that I want to be in, but Toxic is there to hopefully whittle it down. Next up on the special defensive side, we have Swiper the Nickit returning again with the Assault Vest, max HP, max special defense, running Stakeout, and Knockoff, Foul Play, Snarl, and Mud Bomb as our moves this week. This thing is meant to really sit in front of a lot of the special threats that Val has. So the Spritzy Moonblast is still going to do a number on us, but it doesn't get hit by Psychic. I'm not worried about Esper at all. And some of the other special offensive mons, Whalmer if it's special, Cyndaquil, things like that, I'm really not too scared of, because the Nickit has so much good bulk, and having that Stakeout ability could be really good. We haven't really gotten to use Nickit to its full potential yet. It's been able to come into games and get a move off and take a hit here and there, but I think in the replay here, we finally had a game where it was kind of the star of the show here, in some regards. Alexi the Rhyhorn is part of our offensive core this week. Really, we have 4 defensive support style mons and then 2 just all-out attackers, kind of. And Rhyhorn is definitely that on the physical side. It's so bulky with its natural defense and HP that running leftovers, it makes sense. I've got really good natural physical bulk. You can take a couple of hits. I'm probably not going to die in one shot, and the leftovers recovery, if I can get it off, is great. Adamant Nature with Earthquake, Stone Edge, and Ice Fang for our coverage moves this week. And then Stealth Rocks, just because setting them up and breaking Bonsai Sturdy, wearing down Water Spout and Eruption from Cyndaquil and Whalmer. Just good to chip away at their HP so those moves don't do quite as much damage. And just kind of being there to help chip away, because we don't have as much offense on the team. Having that recurring damage from things like Leech Seed, from things like Stealth Rocks, those are going to be really important. On the special side of the house, as far as offensive is concerned, and really kind of our win condition this week, as far as dealing damage is concerned, is Tentacool. Jelly is choice specs this week. We're fast enough to outspeed a good number of things on his team, so I just went bulky offense. We are modest nature, tons of HP, running Scald, Sludge Bomb, Giga Drain, and Ice Beam. Those 4 moves kind of hit almost everything on her team. And I can do really, really good amounts of damage. I am really excited to use Tentacool again as an offensive mon. It sat on the bench for the last few weeks, just didn't have the greatest of matchups, and I was doing some other things where we just didn't really need it. But it's back again, like early season form, coming in to hopefully be our offensive threat on the special side this week. Next up, kind of rounding back out the rest of the team, Goop the Grimer is our Eviolite mon. She is rocking that max HP and max defense, and we're relaxed nature, so that's negative speed. He likes running, Val has a couple of Trick Room setters, so we're going to play it safe, and maybe at least have one thing that can take advantage of the Trick Room if it gets set. Poison Jab is really good against Spritzy, and just like my best stab move. Giga Drain's there for some recovery. Grass type actually does fairly well against a number of things on her team, so that helps me win some 1v1s with the rock and water types. Fire Punch is there for the Bulbasaur and the Pineco. And then Taunt is just kind of a really good support move this week. I anticipate Val bringing some setup stuff, and to be able to lock that down and say, no, you just got to try and straight up 1v1 me, where I think my team is better in the 1v1, where her team is probably better in the setup and kind of like, building towards a win condition, whereas I think my team's better in just like the straight up 1v1 going at it. And then finally, we have Esmeralda the Natu. I run a whole bunch of different iterations of the support Natu this year, and the Light Clay, Magic Bounce, fast, bulky support is back again this week. So we've got Shadow Ball for a 1 attacking move, Thunder Wave for some speed control and to kind of help shut down those setup mons, Light Screen to hopefully give us an edge against Spritzy and some of the other special threats that she has, and then Haze is there to eliminate Calm Mind altogether, or if they want to do maybe it's something with weak armor Kabuto or something like that, where there's stats going all over the place. If I can get a Haze off and reset the field, I think we're in a really good spot. So that's the team. Defense first, offense out of a couple of key areas, and the goal is to grind out a win this week. If we go to our keys to the game, there's a couple of things that I'm really focusing in on this week, and number one is defense wins championships. We're at the point in the season where I've tried a lot of things and I've kind of run the same offensive threats every week, and we're trying to be a little bit more on the defensive side, back to my roots, not necessarily out of a necessity, but more of just switching it up. And I think that having this defensive core team actually lines up really well in today's matchup. And I think defense being our main focus will serve us well against Val and her team. Number two, expect the unexpected. There are a lot of threats on this team. Let me just run down her roster real quick for you. She's got a Bonsly that could be offensive or defensive. It's got Rockhead, so it can fire off double edges and things like that, not take any recoil. It's got Sucker Punch. It's got Stone Edge. It's got Stealth Rocks. It could do a whole bunch of different things. Kabuto could be a defense or offensive sweeper kind of Pokemon. Spritzy obviously has setup potential that we don't want to get into a game with. Wailmer can be physical or special. Oftentimes it's scarfed, so it's going to be faster than we expect and hit really hard. Pineco could go boom after setting up some spikes. Bulbasaur, again, offensive or defensive, and also specially offensive or physical. Gibble has setup potential. Esper is spooky as a attacking threat, but also has a really good support mon. Cyndaquil, obviously fast special attacker. That's probably its. Cyndaquil is probably her most straightforward Pokemon on the team, where it's kind of just got one job and it's going to do it well, but it's less hard to prep for that one. And then Clobbopus, which she hasn't really used at all this year. So we're going into this expecting the unexpected. I'm sure Val and Noah have team built something that is geared to beat what I've been bringing and catch me off guard in some situations, which I think is where she could get a win. And that kind of leads into number 3, where, you know, in keeping calm and tentacool. In those instances where I am caught off guard or there is something unexpected. Tentacool, I think, has a really good matchup and could come in and do a lot in this game. And we want to be Tentacool under pressure going into the game and making sure that we calc every turn that we need to, and that we're really we're really set in the moves that we want to make and where we're going. So those are the keys to the game. Number 1, defense wins championships. Number 2, expect the unexpected. And number 3, be Tentacool under pressure. So let's jump into the game. This is not the game. This is the game. Definitely don't need the spreadsheets open anymore. And I don't need my team builder anymore, and I don't need Val's team. Val's team was awesome. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So, again, as a recap, we have Execute, Tentacool, Nickit, Grimer, Rhyhorn, and Natu. And Val brought a Spritzy, Kabuto, Esper, Wailmer, Bonsly, and Cyndaquil. So, I am really hoping to start the game off and get hazards up. So I'm going to lead Rhyhorn, and the plan is to Stealth Rock, get those on the field right away, and then kind of adapt and go from there. She leads with Esper, so it's either one of two things. It's going to be a support mon, or it's just a really fast offensive lead, and she wanted something that could contend with a Natu that I typically lead with in games that I bring it. It's typically my lead. So I decided to switch out because I think Nickit actually lines up extremely well against the Esper. I'm assault vested. I don't take hardly any damage from this thing, and I can knock off and start snarling or mud bomb or kind of catch something else off guard when it switches in. And that stakeout play. Turns out it is a support set, the white clay with the screens, and we do get a knockoff. So at least we've eliminated long-term screens for the rest of the game. Obviously, Nickit's attack power is not super great, and there was a Reflect Up turn 1. So the knockoff doesn't do as much damage as I would like, but we've eliminated the white clay, which is huge. This was a long game. I'm just going to preface this as like this video is probably going to be 45 minutes long because number 1, it's playoffs, and I want to go in like really in depth with these games. And number 2, there was a lot of jockeying for position early on in the game to try and gain advantage before, we could come in and close it. Both sides had this going on. So we get the knockoff, and she goes out into Spritzy. I wanted speed control immediately on whatever was going to switch in because I kind of figured Esper would switch out. If it's a light clay set, it's already got its screens up. It's kind of done its job, right? I don't know what the other two moves are, but I anticipate her wanting to swap into a threat right away. So I go for Mud Bomb. I want speed control. I want Natu or Tentacool to be the fastest thing on the field when they come out and try and start doing things, right? Either supporting or coming in to fire off attacks. So we get the speed drop there. I switch out into Natu because I want to get my own light screen up and Thunderwave this thing so that it's hampered a little bit. She makes a really good and interesting play and setting up Trick Room. I knew this was a possibility, but I didn't expect Spritzy to be the one that was going to set it. I thought maybe Esper would set Trick Room. I didn't expect the Spritzy itself to carry that move and just be like, hey, I'm setting up for myself. In hindsight, I should have expected it, but it kind of caught me off guard, but we did kind of, in preparing for this game, I knew it was a possibility that there would be Trick Room somewhere on this team. So that goes up, Moonblast comes in, and it does a bunch of damage. But luckily, we do have the HP investment this week. We're not offensive hardly at all. And we do get the Thunderwave off. So I trade 80% of Natu's health for paralyzing a setup Mon that is going to go first in Trick Room because it's slower. But under normal circumstances, having the chance that Spritzy gets paralyzed, gets fully paralyzed in a turn and can't do anything, I figured that was a good trade. And we've still got 2 screens up on his side of the field, so on her side of the field, excuse me. So I want to make sure that we're burning turns and not going for damage, because like Natu doesn't really have a good way to hit this thing. I mean, Shadow Ball's going to do okay damage, but not to a bulky Spritzy, and especially not with a light screen out. So I thought that Thunderwave was probably my best play, and then I could go for a screen afterwards or kind of see what it was doing. So I'm going to swap out because I expect another Moonblast to come in. And Grimer eats it up really, really well. We only lose 18% health. And that Eviolite is coming in clutch. We don't have a light screen up, which is a little problematic just because Psychic could do a number to us. But we eat the light screen, or we eat the Moonblast really well, and now I can use this to go back into Nickit, expecting the Psychic. And now I've got my special wall in front of their special attacker, and we can knock off or snarl or do something to kind of help turn the situation around. So really good switch on my part. Was able to read it there. She goes back out into Esper, and I get another knockoff off. We do 20%, which is more than the first knockoff did, and that's Stakeout, baby. It's kind of cool that like that ability's finally getting some use. Not that it did a bunch of damage, but another good solid attack. Screens are starting to come down, and we could have knocked off whatever item the Spritzy had it stayed in. So I feel really good about that play. Not really. I mean, I could have gone for another Mud Bomb, or I could have gone for Snarl, but I think Knockoff was the best play, just thinking that it probably wasn't going to stay in. So the screens go down, and Esper's going to do it back. I go for a foul play because it's the best move I have to do damage right now. At this point in the game, I'm not really scared of the Esper attacking my Nickit, so I didn't think Snarl was the right play. So I tried to fire off a foul play just to see what would happen, and it obviously didn't do that much damage at all. I know she's probably going for a screen here, and that's a perfect chance for me to get my own Natu in to be able to put up a screen in kind, which is probably the last thing that happens, and a Thunderbolt, which is super effective even through the light screen, is enough to kill me, which is fine. Natu did its job. I wish I would have been able to keep it around for longer, but it dying the same turn it set an 8-turn light screen is honestly probably just a really good outcome. At this point, I feel pretty comfortable that this Esper can't touch Rhyhorn hardly at all. It might have one other move to use that could hit it, either like a Psychic or a Moonblast or Shadow Ball or something like that. But I have a light screen up. I know I'm not going to die at least, and I figure this is as good a turn as any to get rocks up and start chipping away at Val's team. So she switches into Whalmer, and I do get my rocks up. And now it's time to scoot out because like a water spout even through a light screen is going to come and do like 200 damage to me. So it's an easy switch for me into execute, and we get 14% damage, and luckily no burn off of that scald. So good switch for me. I get the eggs in. Benedict's ready to fire off a Giga Drain. Should the Whalmer stay in? And at this point, I'm just trying to get the best defensive opportunity in front of myself. And I honestly, like, at this point in the game, I'm thinking Whalmer's scarfed, right? That's like what I'm scared of most. So I brought the grass type in to hopefully absorb those. Reflect goes down. She switches and makes it look really darn near like, excuse me, she makes it look really, really convincingly like that Whalmer is scarfed. So the Cyndaquil comes out, takes rocks damage, which is great. And I went back and forth on whether or not to click Giga Drain, just going for damage. Hidden Power Fire is pretty useless in this matchup. She did not bring the bug or the grass type. So Hidden Power Fire is not really a move I'm ever going to look to click. So it was, okay, do I go for damage? Do I go for Leech Life, or Leech Seed, or do I go for Toxic? And I kind of settle on Leech Seed here because I figured if the Spritzy switches back in, it's going to take rocks damage, but it's already paralyzed and I can't Toxic it. If anything else gets toxic, that's fine. It's good. But I'm really interested in getting some healing back. And Leech Seed seemed like the best kind of overall play. So I do get seeds out, and we are at 95%. We've still got a light screen out. Cyndaquil's at 64%. So like an Eruption's not really going to do that much anymore. But still enough to kill me because I'm a grass type. So I'm going to switch into my wall. She's going to erupt for 13 damage, which is great. And Nickit is already proving like it's really, really good in this situation. So we get that recovery back, switches into Kabuto, and I actually go for Snarl here. And Noah was surprised that Snarl did as much to an Assault Vested Kabuto as it did. And I now know why. It's because of that stakeout ability doing more damage because it switched in. And I just like, all hail, I guess. Stakeout's such a cool ability. So that Snarl normally would do close to nothing, but instead it did 33%, and there's rocks on the field. So really good turn for me. I still have 3 turns of light screen that I really want to take advantage of, but Kabuto is going to be a physical attacker, and it's time for our swiper to get out in favor of Goop. Knockoff does not work against Sticky Hold, so we do not lose our Eviolite, and we only take 13% damage because we're bulky and defensive. So I'm in a really good spot. I can fire off Giga Drain, kill this Kabuto, and really it's a good middle ground play against Cyndaquil, who comes in and takes rocks damage again. Esper's at low at this point. Spritzy, it takes damage from it. It's at 95% health right now. And it's really good against Whalmer, and it's really good against Bonslys. So Giga Drain is the easy choice for me here. And she makes a really good play, gets a crit. Not that it matters, but gets a crit on the rapid spin. So she gets rocks down, which is a great play. We get our health back, and the screen is gone, and now Cyndaquil comes back out. So it's evened up 5-5. We're 18 turns deep in this game, and it's still 5-5. So this kind of jockeying for position is still going on, and we're feeling really good about it. I did some calcs here, thinking, okay, Cyndaquil probably scarfed. It's got Eruption for sure. At 50% health, Eruption's not going to do a ton. So I calced hidden power ground because I thought that was the worst case scenario, and I saw that Grimer actually lives it, and it should do 32 to 40%. So I actually see that poison jab should kill here. So I take an extra sensory, which was also a kind of a 40%, was like a mid roll for that. Depending on investment, if this thing was timid, that's a max roll. If it was modest, it's an average roll, right? But I still take it relatively well. And then Grimer's able to poison jab the Cyndaquil, and now we're up 4 to 5. Zen Headbutt from a Whalmer. Did not expect that. Because at this point, right, we've only seen Scald on the Whalmer. I think it's a special Whalmer, and I wasn't really afraid of any other special move. So that's why, in thinking, okay, Water Spout's going to do X number of damage, I probably live it. I was not expecting Zen Headbutt. But we take it 21%, so that's great. And we're able to get a Giga Drain off. And then we find out that the Whalmer is leftovers. So it's bulky and not fast. Or at least it's got leftovers instead of a Scarf, at the very least. So great information for us to know for later, so that our Tentacool could actually outspeed this thing, which is great, potentially, depending on investment. So I honestly was not expecting Substitute either, but I figured, hey, I lived a Scald earlier, I lived a Zen Headbutt, like what else? It obviously doesn't have Earthquake, otherwise it would have gone for it. So I'm just going to keep firing off Giga Drains and do as much damage to Whalmer as I can. At this point, Grimer has kind of lived its usefulness. It would be great to maybe hit the Spritzy, but I certainly have other answers for it. So at this point, I'm like, Grimer, you've done your job. I'm going to keep you in. I'm going to Giga Drain until I die, and that's exactly what happens. We thankfully do enough damage to get rid of the Substitute, which is great. And she actually switches, which is awesome. So the Esper comes in, takes the Giga Drain, and again, I'm still in a spot where let's back up here. Esper comes in, takes the Giga Drain. I figured that I was either going to die to a Psychic, or she was going to try and get screens up again. I did not expect the Yawn, but as my response to not wanting more screens to go up than necessary, I click Taunt. And now the Esper, now that I know all of its moves, I know it can only click Thunderbolt, and it's a free switch into Rhyhorn, or he's got to switch. So that's the play I make. He switches into Spritzy to avoid having to just click Thunderbolt on a Rhyhorn. And the Spritzy takes the Earthquake really well. It's Eviolighted at this point. We know that based on how much damage it took. And she gets up Trick Room again. So here is a situation where I really just want to fire off as much damage as possible. Moonblast does a bunch. But we live it, thankfully, because Rhyhorn's really thick. And the Earthquake does not do enough to kill. So I'm faced with a very important decision here. I can either, 1, go for Earthquake and try and get a kill, or 2, try and get my rocks up again and have them on the field for the rest of the game. Breaks Bonsai Sturdy, chips Whalmer, chips the Esper, and if the Spritzy ever wants to switch out, it can't really switch into rocks. So I really thought about this for a couple seconds and weighed my options, and ultimately all of this rides on whether or not the Spritzy gets paralyzed, which it hasn't yet, unfortunately. So the lower speed is great, but when you're in Trick Room, that doesn't really matter. So I'm really hoping that, maybe this is the play where she gets fully paralyzed and we get rocks up. And that's ultimately what I go for. Does not get fully paralyzed and Rhyhorn goes down. However, we've seen this before. I can go into Nickit and feel really safe about what's going to happen here. Moonblast is going to hurt, but Psychic can't touch me. Trick Room is already up. I still don't know its fourth move, but at this point I figure it's probably just going to go for damage, which it does. We eat the Moonblast fairly well, and I go for knockoff, expecting it to do a lot more than 6%. But again, Nickit is not really that heavy of a hitter, and Eviolite just makes this Spritzy really, really tanky. I saved the Nickit, expecting a Moonblast to come back in, and maybe thinking that Nickit could do something in the future. It's still pretty good against the Esper. Actually, it's great against the Esper. Because the Esper can't do anything to it other than Thunderbolt. And I should live one, potentially, depending on investment. So I figured Nickit was worth saving, at least for now. And maybe it's useful later. And the Moonblast, I knew that Tentacool could take it fairly well. And this is a point where, I feel really comfortable just clicking Giga Drain, and it's specs, it's locked in, it's super effective against Whalmer and Bonsly, and it probably kills the Esper. So Giga Drain's what I go for here, and we finally kill the Spritzy. And now we're into a 4-on-3 situation, but it's definitely not over yet. Luckily, I am faster than the Esper, which is great. And the Giga Drain also kills this. So no screens to support Whalmer or Bonsly in the end. I was honestly not sure how fast this Whalmer was, but I knew from previous that Grimer can 1v1 it fairly well and not feel really pressured. So I switched into Grimer knowing that I could 1v1 it. They missed the Zen Headbutt. Thank the Lord. I finally get something going right for me after not getting a single paralyzed the whole game. So it's a little bit of justice there. Ice Beam does a good chunk, but Giga Drain's there to, heal it back. And this is a winning battle for me. However, Val clicks Ice Beam and gets a fucking freeze. And it makes me really sad. Now, I do have Fire Punch, which I thought would unthaw me, but as you'll see here, I'm frozen solid. And Substitute comes out as I try and click Fire Punch to thaw myself, and it doesn't work. And then another Ice Beam kills me. So now this Whalmer is up, and it has a sub. And I have 2 offensive Mons and a Tentacool that I don't know can live Zen Headbutt. I do not know. It'll live Scald and Ice Beam. I have no idea if it'll live the Zen Headbutt. So I go into Execute because Giga Drain is the best chance I have at killing this sub. And I live the Ice Beam, thank God. Harvest procs after the Citrus Berry. I do get rid of the Substitute, and really this all was kind of going on as a way to make sure that the sub goes down and that hopefully Tentacool can take a Zen Headbutt or is faster and can fire off a Giga Drain. So we do get the Harvest proc, which is great. We have 74 HP again. I do switch out into Nickit kind of as a sack here. Also thinking, maybe a Zen Headbutt's coming in. Or maybe, I take the Ice Beam better. This is kind of like a free way to get Tentacool in without taking damage. And I do go down, and that is my free switch into the Jelly that I needed. So losing Nickit sucks, but we're not playing for differential anymore. So it served its purpose extremely well. And I, it did exactly what I needed it to do this week. Turns out I do live the Zen Headbutt, thankfully, and Giga Drain is enough to kill the Whalmer, heal back up. Bonsai comes out, we Giga Drain one more time, and it lives. It doesn't even go down to Stardy, which is interesting. But kudos to the little stone tree itself, mascot playing for as much power and glory as it can. Double Edge being a crit here is really just a slap in the face. It sucks. I'm not gonna lie. I did not do the calc to see if the crit mattered. This is a banded bonsai, so it might not have. But the crit just sucks, right? But Execute comes in. I am faster. I'm able to Giga Drain and get the victory over the Bone Me Bonslys in a very, very close 1-0 victory. It took everything in my team building and in playing this game to actually get this victory. And I feel really, really good about how we went about and got it. So yeah, that's the outcome for this week. We win our round 2 playoff game and cement our place in the Final Four, which is super exciting. Great season for Val. Great game at the end. Almost had me. Very much could have gone the other way. It was probably one of the better games this season. Definitely one of the closest games this season. And I think she played extremely well. So kudos to her on a great season. Albeit some help from Noah, but when it's your first season, I'll give it to you, right? And there I did again. I made the joke about him helping her, but great season. I'm excited to see what she does next season in doubles. I know she's getting better and making all of these decisions herself. Noah's giving her options, but in the end, she's the one that's actually going and clicking the button and telling, and piloting the team. So kudos to her. Great season. Put me on the ropes, and that's, not a comfortable position for me to be in. So with that, here is where things stand with the rest of this tournament. The semifinals are next week, and we play our old buddy Garrett. Man, I want revenge for last season. I played him in the semifinal game last season in season 5, and the Belly Drum Clefable sent me to the losers bracket. I want payback so bad, and I'm so excited to be able to get this chance, and I know it is going to be a dog fight. On the other side of the bracket, we've got Noah playing extremely well, getting a 5-0 victory over Peyton, which I don't think anybody saw coming. I think there were some of us that thought Peyton had a really good chance at winning that game, or if Noah did, it was going to be a lot closer than this. But getting a 5-0 victory is great. In the Lottie Daddies, Quincy somehow has just turned his season around at the start of playoffs and is now in the semifinals as the 11 seed. So we've got a 1, a 4, a 2, and an 11 in the Final Four, which is super crazy, and I'm really excited to see the other semifinal game as well. I think that'll be super hype. But we have our eyes set on the Kalamazoo Raichu, and definitely will be prepping this week and doing everything we can to make sure that we take Garrett down. I don't want to see him win three seasons in a row. Back-to-back championships is cool, and definitely he has earned it and worked hard for it. But I want to beat him and dethrone him and get back to my second championship, and hopefully be able to take home the crown and get our second dub in the APDL. So thanks for your support. I know this was a super long video, but really cool game this week. Again, kudos to Val, hell of a season. We're almost there, buddy. we're almost there, Goomy. We just have 2 games left to go. But before we can think about championships, we got to beat our old rival Garrett. So we'll see you next week with the Goldenrod City Goomys against the Kalamazoo Raichu. Keep cheering for us. Keep supporting us. Thanks for all the comments in the videos. And we'll see you next week.